I'm Liz Larson with The Art of Frosting, but as you can see today, I have dough. We're going to be working on a series of fall baking and decorating. Of course, you all know that baking is not my biggest forte, it's the decorating. So I do have a couple of holiday recipes for pies that of course we decorate in a beautiful way. But before we do that, we've got to know how to make the basic pies. And again, it's got to be something simple, not too fussy if I'm going to make it. As it turns out, I'm making my grandmother's pie crust today, which is very simple, very easy and quick, just a few ingredients. So I want to show you guys how to do this. Let's get started. For this recipe, we're going to be using 3 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1 tablespoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of vinegar or lemon juice is fine too, 1 egg added to milk to equal 1 cup, and for the shortening I'm using some Crisco, some vegetable shortening, and some lard. You can replace the lard with butter or some other kind of shortening if you wish, but I'm using lard and some Crisco. So we're going to start with our 3 cups of all-purpose flour. If this is your first time making a crust, you need to know that you put your dry ingredients in first, and then you add your shortening. So we need 3 cups of this. Now, here's a little tip. I'm a really lazy baker. This is obviously a very simple pie crust. It's my grandmother's recipe, so it's really good, but it's simple. But for lots of years, I've been the only one to do the baking in the family. So, because I come from a bakery background, I've learned that I can make up things in advance. So, here's my little tip. Make all your pie crusts on the same day and freeze them. I get them all made up, put them in the freezer, and then I'm all ready. So, 3 cups of flour, all-purpose flour. This is a great thing to have because I can make multiple batches and I know how much of the flour I've used. It's all marked out in cups and also in the metric. Another trick is that I'm also super bad about skipping ingredients. So I've gotten to where I use these little mini baking cups. These are for mini cupcakes or candy. And I measure out all of my dry ingredients into these little cups so I know that I have them and that I've added each one. Really good tip if you're forgetful like me. So this is my sugar and my salt. Tablespoon of salt sounds like a lot. 2 tablespoons of sugar. And you want to put that on, let it mix just for a second. Next, we want to add slowly our shortenings. Now remember I said I'm using 2 different kinds of shortening. And remember I said this is my grandma's recipe. So I do what she said. She was an amazing baker and cook, so I'm going along. So I'm using half a cup of Crisco or vegetable shortening, really any kind of vegetable shortening, and half a cup of lard. You could replace all of it with butter or half of it with butter, but this way turns out really good. You want to add it just a little at a time. And for those of you new to baking, this is called cutting in the shortening. Just add a little at a time until you have a nice fine crumble. So this is what your crumble is going to look like when all of your shortening and flour are incorporated. It's a nice fine crumbly mixture you can see here, and that's where your shortening is all cut in. I came in close so you guys can get an idea of what I mean by this. So this is a 1 cup measure. You want to add your egg and then just add enough milk to make that mixture equal 1 cup. So it's an egg plus milk to equal 1 cup. So we've got our shortening cut in. We learned that word, write that one down. And we're going to turn this back on just for a second and pour in our milk and egg to equal 1 cup. And quickly add our 1 tablespoon of vinegar or lemon juice. And either way works just the same. They're both good. It just depends on what you have around and what you like to use. We're going to let that just blend, that's all. You don't want to overmix your pie dough or it'll become a little too firm. So just get it blended and turn off the mixer. Next, you want to flour down your surface. Now, if you have a granite or marble top, that really works the best, but any countertop will work. You just don't want to use one that's too porous. And you want to sprinkle flour out on the surface about like this, very lightly. Cover your surface. And you can see that my pie dough has already stuck to my mixer. And we're going to go ahead and just pull that off and get it onto your surface. And then what I like to do is just very lightly knead, just for a couple of seconds, cover it in some flour, about like that. And then just let your dough sit, maybe for about 5 minutes. I really don't know what the magic in that is, but there is some. So just let it sit, rest for 5-10 minutes. Come back and roll it out. So each one of these batches makes 2 crusts, a top and a bottom or 2 bottoms. So split them in half, and I split one in half here. And I'm actually making rectangular pie crusts, but you can make round or any shape that you want. And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to pat the dough out just with my hand with a little flour on into my basic rectangular shape. Now remember, I've got enough flour on the bottom to keep my dough from sticking. And I'm just going to pat that out until I have my basic shape. So have your pans nearby. I happen to have my disposable quarter sheet pans here, right nearby. And you're definitely going to need some form of rolling pin. Take your rolling pin and rub it with your flour. That keeps your dough from sticking. And then just lightly roll it out. You don't want to push too hard because you don't want your dough to stick to your counter. Just lightly roll. And you want to roll in every direction so it's nice and even. If it starts to stick, you just rub just a little more flour on. And you want it to be fairly thin, not paper thin, but fairly thin. So now I want to check to make sure my dough is large enough to roll out onto my pan. So it is. I'm going to take my rolling pin, put it on the end of my dough here, and use a spatula to just tuck up underneath and start to wrap my dough. Now it's not going to stick to my table because I've got my flour, and just lightly roll the dough all the way around the rolling pin. Bring your pan back over, lift the rolling pin, and let your dough drop lightly onto your pan. Super easy. Now you can make some light adjustments if you need to, but don't do too much, you'll end up tearing your crust. Now if this is going to be a single crust and you're just going to leave this the way it is and not put a top over it, you want to just gently lift the edge with one finger here, lift it over, and pinch. So gently lift it over and pinch. And you'll start to get that pretty wavy edge. And the more careful you are about this, the more even it'll be and the prettier edge that you'll have. So once you've got it pinched around the edges the way that you want it, you can use the exact same process to make the crust for the top if you're going to roll out the top. So you would have your pie filled, and then you would delicately roll the crust out on the top, just like you did the bottom with your rolling pin. Exact same process. Now I know that I'm going to be decorating all of my pies, so that's another video coming up in our fall series. I wanted to show you a quick trick if you're going to be storing your pie doughs. And you can store them without putting them in the pan, or if you want to store your top here. Just go ahead and get a piece of parchment paper, lay it over the top, and we're going to use our same trick here. We're going to wrap it around like this, and then you easily pull your rolling pin out, and now you can store your pie dough just like this. Wrap it in some cling wrap, some cling film, or in a plastic bag of any kind, and this will last in the freezer even a couple of months. It just needs to be good and sealed. And then when you want to use it again, make sure it's fully defrosted and just roll it right back out. So that's it. That's how to make a basic pie crust. Now, I'm making industrial strength pies in these quarter sheet pans. You can make these in your traditional round pans as well. These are great because I can take this quarter sheet pan, they're just aluminum foil that I got at the dollar store, and I can take this pie as a gift, no problem, no worry about getting my pans back. Also, they're really easy to use and cheap. So I also like them because they're great for parties. During holiday season, you're always asked to bring something. If I've got my pies and my crust made up in advance, trick, then I can take these. It's enough for quite a few people, at least 20, and I don't have to have any fuss about bringing anything else. So this works out great. So as I told you guys, I'm making all of my pie doughs right now, so I have a lot more work to do, so I better get going. But as usual, you can find me at The Art of Frosting on Facebook and at www.theartoffrosting.blogspot.com for my blog. This recipe and all of our fall recipes will be on the blog, so you don't have to worry about remembering them now. Thanks for watching. Lots more fall stuff to come, and see you all again soon.